friend that got me into it, and I went to this skate park in Liverpool, and just from there I just really loved it. And then obviously when YouTube was up and coming, I'd always be on there watching like different skate videos of pro skaters and just kind of like took inspiration from that really.
I started skateboarding when I was moving into high school. So I was probably about 11, 12 years old, something like that. And when I lived in Southport, I literally knew nobody for the good 3 years of living there because the private school was quite far away. But my brother started skateboarding, and he's a few years older than me, so I kind of started from my brother because he wanted to get me out of the house to meet people and stuff, and obviously I didn't know anyone. So I've been skateboarding now for 12 years from then. So yeah, it's pretty mad, but I met literally everybody I knew from skateboarding, which is always nice. It's a nice social sport.
I got into skateboarding when I was in about year 3, so what's that, about 8 years old. One of my mates, his older brother, was skating, and I don't know, my mum just took me down to the park one day. I ended up nicking some kids' board, but gave me his board, and I just tried going down the flat bank at Southport Skate Park. Ended up decking it a couple of times, but I made it eventually.
I remember that party though, like it was a lot of like our friends who we went to Birkdale High School with, and it was just everyone was getting into it. It was like everyone. It was dead weird. So when I was like 11 and 12, everyone I knew skateboarded, like from my group. And then as we got older, progressively people started to drop off, and then there was just kind of like a select kind of group of people who really just stuck with it. Almost not viewed at all. I think that's maybe part of the issue with development of kind of new parks and like new projects like this is a lot of people don't really have an opinion of it. It's not really that popular. I think that could be down to like a lack of resources in the area really, which is a little bit of a shame, I guess.
From what I know of, for the amount of years I've been skateboarding, I think for skateboarders in Southport would probably agree with me when I say skateboarding is massive in terms of being social and making friends. Like I think that's a very big part of skateboarding, not just the sport itself and learning new tricks and challenging yourself to do things, but more about the people that you go and see. I think is definitely a big part of it. And in terms of skateboarding view to the public, I actually don't know. I guess people could say you find there's like a bit of a nuisance, because sometimes it's nice to get out the skate park to skate street, but obviously when you skate street, it's like you can cause havoc towards the public if you're skating things you shouldn't be skating. But sometimes it's needed because skate parks can become a little bit repetitive, and you need to get out your bubble and just keep things fresh, if you like, with skating.
In Southport, we're not respected, but at the same time, we're kind of not disrespected, especially not like we used to be. There's nowhere near as much trouble down in the skate park. And I don't know, not many people kick off at you anymore. However, in Liverpool, it's a completely different story. I feel like skateboarding has always been quite cool, especially in Liverpool. It's a more liberal place. Obviously, Southport's conservative. I don't know, just Liverpool's a better place to be, I think, for skateboarding. It's a better scene. As I say, it's died down a bit here now in Southport, but
yeah. It's not, you're not really allowed to skate anywhere apart from the skate park. And I think that happened a lot when we were trying to street skate when we were younger. We'd always get told there's a skate park at the front, what you do skating around there. And I think that's the difference really, when people don't encourage that kind of creativity of skating in different spots and trying new things. They put you in a box, and I think that's quite constricting for people who want to take it up. It depends who you're talking to really, doesn't it? If you're talking to the older generation, I think it'd definitely be considered a nuisance. I remember when skating outside here, there was some really good ledges, and there was also a shoe shop in Cambridge Arcade, and they used to cause murder with us. Like, they'd come out, start shouting stuff at us, and it was so immature of them really, because they approached it in such a bad way. So I think there are certain people who consider it a nuisance, but maybe in a city where there's more like culture and more kind of creativity, it's probably a lot more accepted. So I think that kind of brings it back to a small town kind of vibe with not a lot of outlets for creativity.
But like, say if we're skating Southport Town, like they made it illegal pretty much to skate down the street, which is understandable, I guess. But even when things are quiet, you know, when no one's there, we've always skated like places like the Art Centre or the bandstand, you know, all the kind of skate spots which people like to skate. But yeah, there has been issues before with shop owners and stuff at the Art Centre. Like there's one specific lady, I'm not going to bring up who and which one, but like there's always one specific lady who doesn't like it. She always comes out and starts to cause havoc, and cause things basically that's not really needed, because we don't really bring much harm really to anyone when we skate. It's just to get out of our little space, because like I said, skate parks become very repetitive. You need to kind of get out and about, you know, enjoy it really. It's all part of the sport, I think, just getting away.
I think the reason why a lot of people find us a nuisance is because Southport has a very high age demographic. There's a lot of pensioners here, a lot of old people, and they don't want to hear some annoying kid coming down on a little, you know, wooden toy, making loud noises and being a nuisance. So I understand it. I mean, I always try and be respectful. It's not like I'm doing it on purpose. It's just, you know, it's just really annoying when somebody goes out of their way to be a nuisance to you.
It goes hand in hand with skateboarding, I reckon. You've got to have that kind of open-mindedness to that type of thing for people to accept it, which unfortunately isn't the case that often around Southport. There's always a massive sense of accomplishment, and personally, like, I've never been into team sports, so I think with skateboarding, because it's something that you do on your own a lot, you get a more of a self-accomplishment just through landing a trick that you've been trying like 50 times. When you think of skateboarding not really being accepted by many people, when you do meet a skateboarder, you have that thing in common with each other. So when you meet people within the kind of skateboarding community, they're so much more inclusive than, say, for instance, a different sport like football. So just to give an example of that, if you were on a field playing footy and you saw someone else playing footy, I think you'd be less likely to kind of interact with them compared to at a skate park skateboarding and there was another skateboarder there. Because you're sometimes considered as an outsider, you definitely, you know, kind of hang on to that, like when you meet people, and like you do definitely become a lot more inclusive with other skateboarders, which is quite nice.
When you're skateboarding, for me, it's more the fact of not necessarily just getting out of the house, but it's more the fact that when I'm skating, I just don't really, you just kind of don't consciously think about all these problems that you may have been having before you get back on your board. So for me, it's more the fact of like kind of escaping, do you know what I mean, and just enjoying what I'm doing. And it's really hard to put into words what I mean by that, but it's basically when you skate, you don't think of anything else. You just think of the skateboarding and your friends. It's pretty cool.
What I love about skateboarding the most is kind of the community feel behind it. For instance, a few days ago I went to go skate Newsham Skate Park, and there was a fella there that I swear I could have recognised, but I didn't really want to ask. It started absolutely hammering it down for 10 minutes. So I was like, oh, do you want to come sit in your car for a minute? It's the only fellow at the skate park. He said, yeah, right, jumped in. Either way, I ended up giving him my Instagram. I was like, oh, wait, you know this guy? And it turns out that I'm mates with his childhood best mate in London, and we both skated together back in first year, so about 3 years ago. It's just crazy how tightly knit this community can be, even though, you know, there's really not that many of us. Just what I love about skateboarding is you're almost speaking the same language. I mean, it's all one sport, one culture. There's no teams involved. There's no prejudice to one person or another. Like for instance with football, obviously you support this team and somebody else supports another team. There's no supporting teams. You all speak the same language. You can all appreciate the same thing.
I think there is for certain things, like there's no point being very pessimistic about it, but I think with skateboarding, because you need the facilities to do it, like good skate spots and like a skate park, it's probably a little bit harder for skateboarding compared to other creative things that you can do. Like for instance, like photography, you're not as limited. Obviously, the equipment, I guess, and like filmmaking as well. Like you've got a lot more kind of outlet from your own ideas. Whereas in skateboarding, because you need the facilities to do it, I think, and there's money included in that kind of side of things. I think that does make it a little bit harder. But then again, there's always like flat ground creativity that you can try. But I guess with skateboarding, it's maybe a little bit more limited in that sense.
There's not much for people in Southport in terms of skateboarding. Like I said, you have one specific skate park. There's you got the streets parts which you can't skate. The only place I can think of is obviously like local skate parks like Rampworks in Aintree, which is great. Love Rampworks, great place. However, for opportunities, I don't know. I feel like there could be more for it, like more competitions maybe.
I really don't feel there's enough creative opportunities for people to sell, but not even necessarily just for skateboarders, because if you're a skateboarder, you can be an accountant. Do you know what I mean? But I'm trying to think of an outlet which inspires creativity here, and there's just none. There's just nothing which wants to invite creativity here either. I just don't think there's a market for it. I don't think anyone really cares so much for it.
And also, I think people take a lot of comfort in feeling different. I think especially nowadays, like everyone, well not everyone, but it does feel like a lot of people look the same and act the same way, and I think a lot of people, like certain people, want to stand out. I think it is a good way of standing out because it is quite different really, especially in this area. Maybe in America there's a bit more of a culture behind it, but in England and like up north, I think it is a good way of standing out, which is quite a good feeling for a lot of people.
I don't know, I feel like people are quite scared to be different in Southport. I don't know what it is. I mean, obviously I've just come back from London, so I don't care too much. But I don't know. I feel like it's almost, you're almost looked down upon if you're any different to sort of the status quo in Southport. There's just no investment. Proves this perfectly. Southport Skate Park right now is currently closed because it's not been resurfaced for, I think it's before I went to university, so probably about 4 or 5 years ago. And there's holes everywhere. It's just dangerous. It's so dangerous. There's nothing which inspires creativity nor to invite creativity.